Facel was founded in 1939 France as a steel stamping firm to assist with aircraft construction for the war effort. It was an acronym for Forges et Ateliers de Constructions d'Eur et Lorch, which roughly translates to the forges and workshop of construction of Ur and Lohr, indicating the region named for the two rivers. After the war, they began building bodies for companies such as Delahaye, Panhard, Simca, and Ford of Europe, some being delivered fully upholstered, and some being aluminum, as well as some custom bodies, such as for the Bentley Crusta, and other individual components, including bumpers and grills. But as companies began shifting to unibody construction, contracts for car bodies began to decline. The solution was, of course, to build their own cars, which began in 1954 as the Facel Vega. It used a tubular frame with double wishbone coil spring front suspension and leafs in the rear. The body was an updated and enlarged variation of those made for the Ford Simca Comet, using a 104-inch wheelbase and being 180 inches in overall length. Engine was a 4.5-liter, 276 cubic inch Chrysler DeSoto Fire Dome Hemi with 180 horsepower and 255 pound-feet of torque. Chrysler's 2-speed automatic was standard, but a 4-speed manual built for Facel by Pont-a-Mousson could be ordered as an extra cost option, which was about a second and a half quicker in the quarter mile at just over 18 seconds. Top speed was around 115 miles an hour, quite fast for the time, in spite of weighing over 3,800 pounds. It had a center console and a fold-down rear seat, novel features for the time. For 1955, the engine increased to a 4.8-liter 291 cubic inch V8, initially offered as the FB1 with 200 horsepower and 274 pound-feet of torque, and later as the 250 horsepower FB2. A 4-speed FB2 was a full second quicker than the original FB and could do almost 130 miles an hour. Over the first 2 years, 41 coupes and 6 convertibles were made. For 1956, styling was updated with a wraparound panoramic windshield and renamed the Facel Vega Sport, or FVS. A 331 cubic inch Hemi V8 was optional, with 255 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque. Equipped with the 4-speed, it could get to 60 in just over 8 seconds and do the quarter mile in the low 16s. The automatic took more than a second longer, with a top speed closer to 115. For 1957, a 3-speed automatic was added, and power steering and brakes became standard. The original 4.5-liter returned as a listed option, and a 5.8-liter 354 cubic inch Hemi with 325 horsepower and 430 pound-feet of torque was added as the FB4. A FB4 3-speed automatic could get to 60 in under 7 seconds, half a second slower than the 4-speed manual, which now did the quarter mile in under 15 seconds and could do more than 135 miles an hour. It would also see a mid-year front styling update. 1958 was the last year of the original Facel Vega, with a total of 367 being made. It would also be the first year of the Elegance 4-door hardtop model. It was 206 inches long on a 125-inch wheelbase, weighing 4,500 pounds. Early models were produced with the Chrysler 6.4-liter 392 cubic inch Hemi with 360 horsepower and 430 pound-feet of torque. But Chrysler had stopped manufacturing this engine, so once the supply ran out, the cars switched to a 5.9-liter 361 wedge. With 335 horsepower and 398 pound-feet of torque, it was a second slower to 60, taking 8.5 seconds with the automatic. 156 were made through 1964, with a list price of roughly $13,000. For 1959, the FBS became the HK500, essentially the same car, but with the 5.9-liter engine, and available disc brakes that became standard shortly after introduction. 489 would be built over the next 4 years. 1960 saw the introduction of the smaller Facelia sports car, starting at a much friendlier $4,000. It was available as a coupe or a roadster, wheelbase was 97 inches, and length 162, and weight about 2,400 pounds. As cars in France were taxed by cubic inches, it used a new 1600cc inline 4 with 113 horsepower and 105 pound-feet of torque. built by Pont-a-Mousson, like the 4-speed that was the only option. 60 came in at the mid-10-second range, and the Roadster could do the quarter mile in under 18 seconds, with a top speed near 110. For 1961, an S package bumped output to 125 horsepower and 107 pound-feet of torque, shaving about a half a second off acceleration times. But the engine proved unreliable, and only 1,100 of the cars would be sold before the car was replaced in mid-1963. The replacement for the HK500, the Facel 2, arrived in 1962 and was advertised as the world's fastest 4-seat coupe. It used a Chrysler 383 Wedge that produced 355 horsepower with the 3-speed automatic and 390 horsepower with the 4-speed manual. It was longer at 187 inches on a 105-inch wheelbase. Leather seats, power windows, and adjustable shocks would all become available. A 4-speed car hit 60 in 5.5 seconds, the quarter mile in under 14, and top 150 miles an hour. Later models would be equipped with an even more powerful Chrysler 413. The replacement for the Facelia would be the Facel 3, increasing the price to $5,500. A mildly updated version of the same car, using an 1800cc inline 4 provided by Volvo. It produced 107 horsepower and 110 pound-feet of torque and provided similar performance, 60 under 11 seconds and the quarter mile just over 18. With a top speed just over 105. 1,500 were made. The car would see another update become available in 1964 as the $6,000 Facel 6. It was 2 inches longer, about 200 pounds heavier, and used the 2.9-liter inline 6 from the Austin-Healey. It had 148 horsepower and 176 pound-feet of torque, and hit 60 in under 9 seconds, and did the quarter mile in the high 17s, topping out near 120. But only 44 were made. Profits had never been high, but warranty issues related to the 1600 engine would plague the company until the financial issues were too big to overcome, and the company closed its doors at the end of 1964. Although they barely lasted more than a decade, many consider Facel to be one of the best sports cars manufacturers of their time. If you want to have input on the next brand that I do, check out the poll on my community page. And as always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment below and like and subscribe.